Welcome, ladies and gents. Another video here focusing on the farmers' protests, which a lot of analysts and online creators are talking about at the moment. So for the non-European viewers who might have heard about this, there's farmers' protests happening across the continent right now. A lot of unrest, particularly in France, where things are getting a little bit aggressive. And the reason why is because, pretty much encroachment from the European Union. They are the European Green Deal. They're trying to reduce CO2 emissions as part of the whole environmentalist thing. They're also planning to bring in agricultural imports from the Ukraine and South America, and that's going to affect the European producers. And then also we have the government withdrawal of subsidies as well for the agricultural industry. And even in Ireland, this is happening as well. There was rumours recently that the Greens want to pretty much reduce the number of cattle in the country to, minimise the old methane and emissions and so on. So this is a continent-wide issue, and the farmers are kind of reacting because they feel like they're being attacked, they're being encroached upon, and we all saw this coming. The old environmentalist movement is going after the farmers. So first of all, as I've mentioned in other videos, globalism is Marxism, which will come as a shock to some people, but it's globalism. It's the idea of having a world without borders and so on. So environmentalism is an outgrowth of Marxism. It's one of the kind of the sub-agendas, the climate change movement. So the European Union and the United Nations are Marxist entities, right? They're Marxist organizations. They talk about solidarity, open borders, and they don't say open borders, but it leads to open borders and no respect for national sovereignty and so on. So the United Nations is a Marxist one world government organization, and it pushes many different Marxist agendas. We've seen how they've been pushing through the different publications talking about the different migration compacts they've published over the years. As well as that, you've got the Green parties as well across the many countries, Western countries in particular. In Ireland, we have the Green Party as well, is involved in the government at the moment, and with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, two of the other major parties in the country. So you've also got Marxist groups, the watermelon activist groups. The UK recently been dealing with Just Stop Oil, are the group who've been going around throwing orange powder all over the place. That's a Marxist group as well, so they're using the colour orange is amusing. It's a little bit less obvious than using the typical commie red colour. So Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, Last Generation, and even Greenpeace, and groups have been around for quite a while. They're all Marxist, ideologically Marxist organisations. The NGO complex is obviously riddled with that ideology as well. So the watermelon groups, right? So watermelon groups are red on the inside, green on the outside. I appreciate not all watermelons are of that colour, but some of them are red on the inside, green on the outside. So watermelon groups. And obviously this is nothing about saving the planet or saving the animals or anything benevolent. This is all about control, which we could all kind of predict. So the globalists, what people call the globalists, the attack, this kind of encroachment on the rights of farmers has a few different elements to it. I think a lot of them have been reasonably kind of identified so far, but let's again look at this from a Marxist point of view. So first and foremost, it's an attack on capitalism, since agriculture is traditionally part of a country's, nation's economy and free market and so on. The related green agenda is also an attack on capitalism, as going green causes the country to pretty much bleed money and prosperity as it tries to go green with renewable energy resources and so on, inefficient energy resources. It's blowing all this money trying to go green, and it cannot power its electricity grid sufficiently if it doesn't go conventional and so on. So it's a way of folks bleeding all the finances. I'm sure you've noticed as well how only the Western countries are really going along with this. Countries like China, Russia, North Korea, the usual suspects, are not participating in this green agenda. So it's an attack on capitalism, first of all. It's related to that. The second reason why there's an attack on farmers is because the Marxists traditionally have a tradition of trying to gain control of the food supply. This is something that goes way back. Somebody who's studied communist history knows that they seem to have an obsession with getting control of the food supply, which has resulted some disastrous episodes in the history of humanity all through the 20th century, pretty much since the Russian Revolution. You've had all these famines and a serious shortage of food because of these ideological nut jobs controlling the food supply. So that's another Marxist tradition as well. And of course, the attack on the farmers is part of the whole, they're trying to put pressure on them to make sure that they go along with the green agenda. They're trying to change how they farm, to make things more sustainable, quote unquote, to produce less CO2. And this all ties in as well with the United Nations Agenda 2030 and its global sustainability goals, which we've heard so much about. So, the imagery on screen shows you what that's all about. And, you can easily find on the UN website all their just jabberings about what they plan to do with the planet, pretty much. Another element of this as well is that the globalist system is trying to force farmers to produce vegan produce. You can see that the United Nations and several other groups and entities and people on the political left pushing veganism, right? So it's a bit weird. They seem to be very interested, again, that obsession with being interested in what people eat, how much they eat and what they eat. So they're trying to push veganism as well. We'll come back to that in a moment. And so even to get a bit more into veganism and how this connects in with it, it's pretty much the New World Order diet, which shouldn't really shock anybody. So we've been eating one way for a few thousand years, and then all of a sudden these activists come along. I mean, veganism didn't just appear a few decades ago. It's been around a little bit older than that, and a lot of the propaganda says it's been around thousands of years, but we didn't get here by being vegan, obviously. So now they're pushing this veganism thing, which is an unnatural man-made diet, and they're talking about sustainability and so on. Even the mayor of London, who was the Fabian socialist mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, was pushing the planetary health diet, which is being pushed by several different organizations. So they're talking about reducing the amount of protein you eat every day to just a few grams, pretty much. That's 44 grams or something ludicrous like that, recommending that people try to stay away from animal products because it's better for the planet. So a little bit disturbing. Now, I've talked about veganism before, about how it's an unnatural diet and it actually helps. Some people have called it the New World Order diet. So we've seen how they're very interested in controlling the food supply and what we eat. So they seem to be very interested in that nowadays. And obviously when the UN starts talking about, forcing people to go green and have a vegan diet, they're not doing it for benevolent reasons as usual. So the primary difference between conventional diets and the vegan diet is that vegan diets are deficient in obviously animal fats, cholesterol, saturated fat, and bioavailable proteins as well. So veganism achieves a few objectives for the whole globalist achieves a few globalist objectives. It kind of complements nicely with the other kind of agendas that they're pushing. The feminism thing, the trans non-binary stuff, it connects in with all of that, and also the sovereignty of nations and the strength of nations as well. So a vegan diet deficient in animal fats and cholesterol, and most of the cells in your body are made of cholesterol. So there's a few consequences for the body when we have a whole population going towards veganism, which they seem to be pushing us towards. One of those being that accelerates the aging process. Also, the endocrine system is affected by deficient cholesterol as well. Your body can make some, but not enough. You need some from your diet as well, as nature intended. The endocrine system is reliant on cholesterol. Your body needs cholesterol to make hormones, so that helps other Marxist agendas as well, because it kind of helps to disturb people hormonally, right, and make them hormonally unhealthy. It can lead to infertility. It also blurs the lines between male and female, so that should resonate with you out there. You're wondering why, how does that help the whole trans and non-binary thing as well? So veganism is pretty much the perfect diet to complement those agendas. It's also affects the brain as well, because the brain is dependent, is made up of fats and water pretty much. So a diet deficient of healthy fats and cholesterol is very problematic. Now you'll find a multitude of articles and propaganda out there pushing propaganda to the contrary, but everybody knows it's a little bit unusual when you have international organizations and governments telling you what you can and can't eat. So that's a massive reason why they're trying to get at the farmers and put them under pressure and coerce them. They're trying to blackmail them by, saying, "Oh, we'll just import food from other places." I think that's what they're going for there. They're trying to blackmail the farmers so that they'll play ball and just fall into line pretty much. So veganism is the whole, virtue signaling and pathological altruism thing in diet form. You're trying to help others or something outside of yourself to the detriment of yourself. And when it comes to nations, going vegan for a whole nation is a really, really bad idea. But that's what they're trying to push. Don't believe me, you can look it up about Sadiq Khan in London. Imagine trying to tell 7 or 8 million Londoners what they should or shouldn't be eating. It's ridiculous that they're going to bring the diets down to World War II kind of fasting levels. So just to summarize then a few things, the attack on the farmers is an attack on capitalism. It affects the economic sovereignty of a country. It's more an attempt to gain more control over the food supply, not just what we eat, but how we eat. And it's also an attempt to enforce compliance within the agricultural industry and the whole saving the planet agenda. So that's all for now. See you in the next one.